gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
In a crowded marketplace of voices, two blacksmiths stood across from one another, not with blades, but with hammers. Each strike against the anvil sent sparks into the air, not to burn the other down, but to reveal the strength of the metal beneath. The loudest clang meant nothing if the steel bent too easily under pressure. Between them sat a single piece of iron, glowing red from the heat of scrutiny. One shaped it with questions, and the other tempered it with answers. And neither could see the final form alone. Only through the rhythm of resistance did the iron lose its impurities and begin to resemble something worthy of being held. The crowd thought they were watching a contest, but what they witnessed was refinement. Pride was the slag that had to be scraped away, and patience was the water that cooled what anger tried to overheat. In the end, the sharpest edge belonged not to the louder voice, but to one willing to be forged. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Falaise, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to when we're up to it. On this episode of the Suffering Podcast, a friend who I connected with, who we come from diametrically opposed areas, we're different parts of the country, but when I sit down and start talking to this gentleman, God, we have so much in common, and I'm so thankful that you're here. And we have Austin Broughton in here in studio to talk about the suffering of debate, because you, my friend, you have a gift, and I want to highlight it. So thanks for coming in, bud.
I appreciate that, Kevin. I really do. I'm glad to be here. You are one of my favorite. If anyone should be a Jubilee All-Star, it should be you. One of the first episodes that I watched was actually the one cop surrounded by 20 criminals, which was your episode. So I'm honored to, when I went on the Amanda Seals debate, and you saw that clip and we connected, that meant a lot to me, because you were someone I always wanted to have a conversation with myself. So I'm just as glad to be here as you are.
You know, the whole time I'm in L.A., and the studio is right on the border of South Central. Mm-hmm. And L.A. is an interesting place. I've never seen someone. Listen, there's lots of homeless around here. I've never seen homeless like that in my life.
Yeah.
The only place I didn't see homeless in South Central. Mm-hmm. There was nobody around. But that was an interesting thing, and I'm glad I connected with you, because how you handled that, you handled it with fact, you handled it with grace, you didn't handle it with anger, even though some of the stuff I think she was saying was insane. But you presented so good on that episode, so I'm grateful to have you in there. Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as police, and we certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So if you're looking for a car, go to toyotahackensack.com. Let them find you a car, but also tell them the Suffering Podcast sent you. So, Austin, each week we take a question from our audience. This question comes from Lot of Love. Mm-hmm. When everything is stripped away, title, roles, achievements, what remains? You're our guest. Please lead this one off.
When everything is stripped away, the titles, the accolades, what remains is that I am what the Bible says I am. I'm dust. I'm a servant of the living God. And I think that means more to me than anything. One of my biggest goal in life is to be able to die and at the resurrection say, Lord, I was an unprofitable servant. That's all we're called to be able to be anyway. Because when you strip away, you have to think about it. We are all going to end up facing the ultimate enemy, the ultimate democracy, which is death. It is the greatest equalizer in all of the universe. The presidents will pass, politicians will pass, the rich man, the poor man, everyone will pass through that same specific door. And so your accomplishments at the end of the day really don't matter. Your life in and of itself doesn't necessarily matter unless you've given it in service to something. One of my favorite quotes from Dr. King was, if a man has not found something for which he is willing to die, he's not actually fit to live. And when you take that and even juxtapose that with the words of Christ himself, that no greater love hath a man than this, but that he laid down his life for his friends, and then that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. All of those quotations, especially coming from someone that was a former atheist, all of those quotations meant a lot to me, because when you really think about it, we're all walking toward the same door anyway, every single day. And so when you strip everything away, can you say, will Austin Broughton be able to say, I served to the best of my ability? If I can answer that question with a yes, and some more days than not, I fail, right? More days than not, I think we all fail if we're honest with ourselves. But if I can answer that question and say, Lord, I tried to do something in service to you, then when you strip everything away, that's all that is left. And that's all that should be left.
Are you ready to enhance your skills and provide the best care to those who need it the most? I'm Kevin Donaldson.
I'm Sherry Alsop. Our trauma-informed training is here to help, and we've been traveling across the country delivering this essential need to departments and organizations of every size, shape, and makeup.
We come to you with on-site training so you don't have to worry about travel or scheduling conflicts.
This isn't just a class, it's an interactive experience. You'll learn directly from subject matter experts who teach from a victim's point of view, putting you in the shoes of those who have experienced trauma.
This approach allows you to understand trauma on a deeper level and to better serve the individuals you work with.
We'll guide you through new interview techniques that prioritize a victim-centered approach, ensuring safety and empathy in every conversation.
And for those of you in law enforcement or other fields, our training includes post-credits, giving you the extra added value and recognition for your commitment to professional growth.
We offer references upon request to show just how effective our training can be.
Don't miss the opportunity to improve your understanding of trauma and make a real difference in the lives of those you serve. Get in touch with us today by going to sherryalsop.com and let us bring trauma-informed training to your organization.
Together, we can make a lasting impact.
The way I look at it is we have such a short time on this earth, like you said. We're lucky if we get 80 years. And when we pass on, we'll be forgotten within a generation or two. Tell me if you know where your great-grandparents are buried.
I don't.
You don't. And most people don't. You're not uncommon. I'm a freak and I know where they're buried, but that's because I did a lot of research.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever told me that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So within a generation or two, you will be forgotten. All right? So my goal, and only thing I want to do is I want to leave this earth in a better spot than when I found it. I have the ability to change something, change somebody's mind, make the world a better place, leave my stamp here. And it's not an egotistical thing to the point where, hey, listen, he wasn't a perfect man. He's made plenty of mistakes, but he did some good stuff while he was here. I'm a big King David guy, right? I love King David. The reason I love King David is because he was just a man. He had his faults. He made his mistakes, but he was capable of some greatness, and whose name is spoken throughout history? David. Why did he do that? Because he knew that God loved him. God loved him. Mm-hmm. He knew that he was a child of God. No matter what mistakes, he asked for that forgiveness. So when I leave this earth, when all the titles, when all the achievements are gone, I really want to have left this earth in a better place than I found it. Regardless of what that is. There's been times when I've left the area probably in a worse shape than when I found it, but I've always tried my best to make amends because I don't want anything. I don't want anything from anybody. I don't want anything from anything. All I want to do is just do my best while I'm here. So to piggyback off of what you said, when I move on, when it's my time, all I would like is when I get to the gates, I get a pat on the back and said, "You did well, son. Mm-hmm. You did well." And that would be enough for me. That's like the ultimate. It's an achievement, but that's like the ultimate achievement when you pass on and you just have that. All right, bud, you did good. It's kind of like when you look at your kids, right?
Yes.
And they walk off the field or whatever sport they're doing, or if they're on the playground, they do something right, and you have that proud dad moment where you're like, all right, bud.
Yeah, and I got a 5-year-old. He'll be 6 this year. So I can't wait to have some more of those moments. I think it's interesting when you think about it like that. When you look at life as a series of moments, you can make each one of them magical. You can make each one of them something worthwhile. But I think that today we get caught up so often and so stuck in this mode of I have to just do what's pleasurable, not what's most profitable for the spirit or most profitable for the soul. And a lot of times that's, I think, where a lot of anger comes from a lot of people. Going back even to the discussion we were having with Amanda Seals, when I sat down across from her, our topic of conversation was that black-on-black crime is due to underfunding and over-policing. All I was trying to get her to say was, look, and I told her, I said, one of those two I don't necessarily disagree with. Black communities have historically been underfunded. There's a legitimate case that Black Americans could get some form of, not necessarily reparations, but damage repair. Because we can economically demonstrate that Black Americans created billions of dollars for the U.S. and the South.
Well, you teach them to fish, right?
Right. That's it. That's exactly it. Yes.
You teach them to fish rather than just give them fish.
Exactly. Why not do both?
Because if I give you anything, it'll be gone. Like, let me bring this one out a little bit. Remember those the COVID paychecks that we got?
The stimulus
money.
Yes.
Remember those? Well, did anybody really use it for groceries? Did anybody really use it for their mortgage?
I'm going to tell you, I know I didn't, and I know a lot of my friends that got, not only some of them, got the stimulus checks, but I know some people that got even the business, the little business loans, or the I forget what the
stimulus business. Yeah, I know, because I got a friend of mine. I don't know, he was a friend of mine. He's not a friend of mine anymore, but he stole like $3 million.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that got a lot of money, and it wasn't for business. They didn't use it for business expenses. Nope. Let me tell you. But again, it's you give people something and they don't use it well, especially when you look at the black community. I hold this paradox I hold this paradox in my brain. Black people did work in this country for 244 years that was unpaid labor. Now, technically, I mean, there's nothing technical about it. That happened. You look at Jim Crow, black people have only had fully equivalent rights in the nation for around 50 to 70 years, somewhere around there. When you go to work, your employer can't tell you how to spend your money, right, after they pay you. That's understandable. Doesn't mean it's still not owed, but the reality is that many black Americans, if given a massive check today, they would probably go back and turn it back into the same hands of the people that they're claiming oppressing them.
Oh, yeah.
That's the unfortunate reality that we're in.
The story about that, have you ever read the autobiography? I've read two autobiographies that are juxtaposed to each other, Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant, right? Mm-hmm. I want you to read them in conjunction with one another. Okay. Now, the common person would say, well, obviously, Ulysses S. Grant was anti-slavery. Ulysses S. Grant didn't care one way or the other. He followed what the president said.
Right.
All right. Where Robert E. Lee, you would think he was the guy for slavery. He's fighting for the Confederacy. Actually, and this is a really unpopular, it's not even an opinion, it's fact. Robert E. Lee's wife used to get in trouble for teaching the slaves that they had on their plantation, which is now Arlington Cemetery, used to teach them how to read, and she would get in trouble for it. Now, Robert E. Lee knew that slavery was wrong. He knew that slavery was going to end. So you have one method of abolishing the slaves, which is Ulysses S. Grant. They should be free tomorrow. Now, here's the problem with freeing them tomorrow. You're putting a bunch of uneducated, unskilled laborers. Here's what's going to happen. The rich people are going to take advantage of them. They're going to be indentured servants. Mm-hmm. Robert E. Lee's method, he also wanted to abolish slavery, believe it or not. But he said, you need to take 6 months, a year. You need to educate them. You need to make them learn how to take care of themselves so they can be productive members of society. You just can't release these people. It's actually cruel to do that. So it's funny how history kind of bends things in that manner.
Yeah, it is. And even going back to staying right there where you are, 100 years later from those events, Dr. King made the same statement. He said that when black people were given freedom in 1863, but no land, no business capital, no nothing, it was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the rains and the winds of heaven. And at the very same time that America refused to give black Americans any land through the Homestead Acts in Congress, they gave away 200-something million acres of land, and they provided county agents to further the expertise of the white Europeans in farming. They provided low interest rates from the banks so that they could mechanize their farms, and they provided government-backed subsidies so that now those, not only could they not have to farm for so long, the descendants of these people were well-educated in what they were doing, well-educated in agriculture, well-educated in how to maintain the wealth that was given to them. And I never heard that about Robert E. Lee till you just brought it up. So now I'm agreeing with that. That's a very logical way to handle that.
That's the way it had to be handled. Unfortunately, look what happened. If you look at post-Civil War, the black communities got taken advantage of on a level that was way worse than slavery. Because at least when they were slaves, the owners would take care of them.
To a degree.
To a degree. They wanted to keep them alive so they can keep working, which isn't the same as living. Let's make that clear. But if you just release them and say, "Oh my God," like you know what, it was a horrible thing to witness. But you know, then I go back to this, and this is about making lemonade out of lemons.
Yes, sir.
You have somebody like Bass Reeves. Do you know who Bass Reeves is? Bass Reeves is arguably one of the greatest lawmen known to man. Mm-hmm. Okay, Bass Reeves was a black guy. Okay. Bass Reeves is a former slave. Bass Reeves wasn't allowed to be a lawman in a white community. He was only allowed to be a lawman on Indian reservation land. So what did he do? He said, okay, I'm going to go be a lawman. He was the greatest lawman. Over 1,000 arrests. He kept the peace. Everybody, when they heard the hooves of his horse coming, they were scared. And if you think his name doesn't echo in eternity, have you heard of the Lone Ranger?
I have.
So the Lone Ranger's name was Dan Reeves.
Based off Bass Reeves.
Based off Bass Reeves. Now, racism aside, they made him white, but that's a whole different story.
I mean, history. I think we're fair enough to say history's been whitewashed sometimes.
Sometimes. And that was one of them. But Bass Reeves, a black man, a former slave, took that bad beat where he couldn't be a lawman. He felt that urge to serve, and he did it anyway, regardless. He just found a workaround on how to do it. And God, he's one of my favorites. I read about him every chance I get, because here's a guy that had, remember, he's out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
He's against more guns than him, and he succeeded. He didn't only succeed, he thrived, and his name still echoes in eternity. So, but anyway, so Austin, you've traveled all the way up here from the ATL.
Yes.
You went through the worst airport in the United States.
You get used to it when you're from Atlanta, though, so it doesn't feel quite that bad.
I fly through Atlanta all the time, and I'm like, God, just let me find an outlet that works.
Oh
so
yeah, no, you're not charging your phone. You do it at the house.
There's nothing. It's like everything's broken. I always say that Atlanta airport. And God, I got to fly through Atlanta really soon, so I probably screw it. I say Atlanta is the Walmart of airports.
I mean, I hate that you say that about my city, but I can't disagree because it's the truth.
Atlanta's great. I love Atlanta.
No, just the airport itself. Oh, if you're not used to it, it's terrible. I have no doubt. Now, see, I'm in the unique position where when I travel, every other airport in the world to me is small. I'm like, oh my God, the security wait is only 3 minutes. Or I remember when I was going to Los Angeles, I was like, I can get through this airport 10 times faster than I've ever gotten through Atlanta's.
Except Dallas.
I haven't flown to Dallas yet.
So I was just in Dallas.
Okay.
Dallas is like 10 times bigger than Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah, it's huge. It's just a mess. It is a complete mess.
See, now I have to add that to the Rolodex. Now I got to add that to the document.
So why don't you give our audience a little bit about yourself? I've followed you for quite some time. I do hang on most of the stuff that you say because you spit bullets. All right?
Appreciate that.
You talk in a way where you talk with so much authority that you make me think, And then I go look it up, and I'm like, damn it, he's right. He's right.
Well, that doesn't come from me. That definitely comes from God, Kevin, without question. My mother discovered my gift of speaking when I was 2 years old. She tells this story that my oldest sister was struggling to memorize an Easter Day poem. And she's in the car doing it. She's struggling. And according to my mother, I have my pacifier in my mouth. And I pull it out of my mouth, and I say, no, Indy, this is how you say the speech. And when I finish, I pop my pacifier back in, and I'm going back to minding my business. Mind you, I'm 2 years old. According to my mother, I was talking what other people could understand before I was walking. But that was when she knew. She said, my son has a bit of a gift. And so when I was a child, I loved making my parents laugh. I loved making anybody laugh because I love doing impersonations. And that progresses to when I'm 8 years old, my elementary school is looking for someone to memorize a section of Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. You had to be in the 4th or the 5th grade to participate in the program, but that did not matter to Susan Broughton because her son could do whatever. And she asked me if I felt like I could sound like Dr. King, and I said, yeah, I can try it. So we go to the library. We pick up a tape of the March on Washington, and I'm watching. That's the first time I hear "We Shall Overcome." That's the first time I'm watching all these black people in this black and white footage walking down the National Mall, and I'm fascinated, not even by what is going on, but what it is that I'm watching. Like, all these people are marching. I see the signs. I see, we're I'm a man. I see we want equality. We want freedom. And then I hear A. Philip Randolph say, and I have the pleasure to present to you the moral leader of our nation, Martin Luther King Jr. And I hear Dr. King speak for the first time. And at 8 years old, I had no idea what the man was talking about, but I knew what he was saying meant something significant. And I was fascinated by the musicality of his voice.
There's a little bit of theater.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a little bit of theater. And, there's certain people throughout history that had it. Martin Luther King had it, and he used it for good. Adolf Hitler had it, and he used it for evil.
Absolutely.
If you look at some of the best speakers in history, Martin Luther King's up there. Adolf Hitler's up there. And
yeah.
I know people aren't going to like to hear that, but he was a great speaker.
Listen, if you ever go back and look at some of the historians that have talked about Adolf Hitler's rhetorical skill, and which is so funny, by the way, because Hitler was a meth addict. Y'all can look that up. But
Pervitin, they called it. They called it Pervitin.
Oh, it was Pervitin back then?
Well, Pervitin was meth.
Pervitin was, okay.
But they called it Pervitin.
The battles we fight are hard and taxing on the soul. fighting a battle that seems impossible to win. The stressful calls that give us wounds that cannot be seen.
These moments leave scars. They leave dents. Sometimes we just need to sit and talk over coffee.
Finding a moment of peace in the comfort of decompression with those whom you share difficulties. Sharing moments with those who are the only ones who understand. Our peace comes in the quiet moments we can share with our brothers and sisters.
It's just a moment to sit, listen, and let it out. We may be dented, but we are not broken. The Suffering Podcast. Dented Ace Coffee was created to bring the peace to the protectors. Dented Ace Coffee is a tribute to my brother Mike Falaise and all the others who couldn't find their peace. 100% of the proceeds will go directly to Dented Development Project so that we can begin to repair the dents caused by suffering in veterans, first responders, and their families. The Suffering Podcast's Dented Ace Coffee. Get yours today by visiting thesufferingpodcast.com.
One of the things that I forget the historian's name, but he said that the scope and the power with which Hitler spoke was almost as if you were standing in front of the Antichrist. And mind you, those of you that read the scriptures, you know the Antichrist is going to be such a great speaker, he'll make Martin Luther King and me look like absolute child's play. Malcolm X looked like child, everybody. And so what I find interesting is there is a bit of theater, I think, to all great speakers.
Correct.
I would agree with you there 100%. And so as I'm learning this material, my dad forced me to do this too. He said, not only do you learn the words and master them, you need to learn what the words mean. Because now that when you're in a position of having a microphone and you're the one behind it, you're now in a position of authority. So you need to know what every word you're saying means. So my dad forced me to look up what did interposition mean? What did the doctrine of nullification at the federal level, at the state level, what does all of that mean? And that was where I began to study Dr. King. And that's where my speaking voice came from. It wasn't from me. I don't know to this day what my natural actual speaking voice is because it's been so heavily influenced by the styling of Martin Luther King Jr.
Yeah, but I've seen you speak, and you do mimic that very, very well, and it's your own. But you add in your own style. You're not just doing a parody or mimicking him to 100%, because when you speak, people feel it. Okay, and that's what I think the mark of a good orator is. And when Martin Luther King spoke, you felt it. Mm-hmm. All right, when I'm assuming I wasn't there, but when Adolf Hitler spoke, you felt it.
The German people had to feel it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have went along with his bullshit. Right. There's no way. True. There's no way. I think, and it speaks to what you're talking about. You can, when you have great power, you can use it for good or for evil. It's completely up to you. And I think that's one of the more interesting things. When you look at throughout history, some of the greatest people, some of the greatest movers and shakers of this world have been just that. It's preachers, politicians, ministers that know how to command a microphone. You're absolutely right there, 100%.
There's a gentleman, he's a preacher, and he's not a big social media presence, big heavy guy, black gentleman. He is probably one of the most fiery preachers, and he speaks from the heart. And I got to find his name, and I got to put it out over social media because I follow the guy. And the reason I follow him is because his message is beautiful, and he's got such a fiery way of speaking. He uses his hands, he speaks, he engages, he does all these different things. And that's what you do. And you learned that from such an early age.
Yeah.
All right. And it's what I really like is your parents fostered that ability. They fed into it.
Yeah.
Now, did they start putting you in front of people?
So no, they never did. My mother, I tell you the story. When the first time I gave the I Have a Dream speech, as soon as I say free at last, thank God I'm free at last, as I'm walking down the steps, my thing is my job is done. I want to go sit next to my mom and dad. I'm done. I quit. A woman grabs me from the audience, and there's tears in her eyes, and she says, "Where's your mom and dad? I got to ask them a question." So I take them to where they're sitting. The first words out of her mouth was, "Does he know that I have been to the mountaintop speech?" Which I didn't know nothing about that at the time. I just learned this one thing. And she said, how much does he charge for it if he charges at all? So that was where we realized for the first time that one, this is a gift. Two, not only could you possibly monetize it, but the better thing, which again, my mother and father picked up on, you now have demonstrated the ability to write your own material and master it that way. So I was never put in front of anyone per se directly by my parents. That was all an after effect of one event. People always say one event can change your life, one day, 1 year. Literally one event put me on a course where I learned for purely as they say, the love of the game. If I'm a basketball player, but for the love of speaking, I learned all of Dr. King's material and decided to commit it to memory and share it with people because I realized very early, and my parents realized it, but I grasped it at an early age. Something about what this man is saying is still relevant to today. And even when you go back and look at all of his speeches, you can pick quite a few of them that have a relevant message that still applies to many of us today.
I think it echoes out.
I agree.
Okay, I think it echoes out where he was speaking mostly to the black community then.
Yes.
But now it echoes out to pretty much everybody. We all want these basic rights. We all want everything that he said. Okay? I don't think he said anything like, hey, I want $1 million. Well, yeah, we all want $1 million, but
Right.
Everybody knows realistically you're not going to have $1 million, or most people aren't. So all these different basic human rights that he was talking about, we all want them, and we all are given them by our U.S. Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with you is you do it very well. When you speak, you align what he said, and I get this love of our country and a belief in our country that I think a lot of people have lost. All right. Did you have it back then?
I always did. So what I as I got older, Kevin, what I started to understand was the same thing that Dr. King grasped, which is there's a greatness and a great hypocrisy that exists in the United States of America. But it doesn't change the fact that you love this country. One of the things that he said was that all we're saying to America is be true to what you're saying on paper. Somewhere I read of the freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom to protest for rights. The founding fathers said in the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal and that they're endowed by God with these inalienable rights, that among them are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, while at the same time owning slaves and not looking at slaves as actual human beings. There's a love of their fellow man, but now the only problem is we got to make sure we see all human beings as men. Dr. King understood this.
That's the big question right there. What's a man? When you say man, it's woman too.
Of course, right.
What is a human being?
Right. Don't kill us in the comments, guys. We mean ladies too in there.
So what is a human being?
Yes.
Right. And I think that's what here's the beauty of our, not so much the Declaration of Independence, but the Constitution.
Yes.
And I've heard people say this before. These were rich, white, aristocratic men who wrote this thing. But they were also very smart men. And here's the beauty of our Constitution. We can amend it.
Yes.
We can amend it. Because they were smart enough to know that what is true right now is not going to be true in 100 years, 50 years, 40 years, whatever it may be. So that was the beauty of our Constitution. I think most people, even during the time of the writing of the Constitution, knew that this is where it's going. We have this influx of Black Africans coming in, and yes, they are slaves, but that's not going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're not even the last country in the world to have slaves. So as a matter of fact, we got rid of it. Well, there's still a lot of slaves around.
There is, and people love just dogpiling on America. Oh, slavery, but you do know that there are more than 40 million slaves right now in this world, and over half of those are sex slaves. Half.
That's something.
Which is, if that's not satanic or borderline satanic at minimum, I don't know what we're having a conversation about.
Mm-hmm.
But again, that speaks to what you're bringing up, which is the founding fathers, in their inherent hypocrisy, they were at least, either call it them or maybe God put it in their heart somehow, they knew that there was going to come a point where things may need to be amended. And that is, to your exact point, the beauty of the Constitution.
Well, you should be judging. So I'm going to get the exact verbiage right, and you're going to have to help me out with this. It's a man should be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin.
Yep.
So I think that's the place we're fighting to be right now. And there's sides that are making money off of our division.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Division is the most profitable thing on the planet.
Right.
I mean, without question.
And then there's another side that's saying, no, this isn't the way that it is. And I don't think it's the side you think it is that's fighting for equality.
No, it's not. What people got to understand is, listen, you know who Smedley D. Butler is? Is that name?
No.
So Smedley D. Butler was he was a military general that wrote a essay called War is a Racket. And he said that war is the most profitable economic activity on earth. It's the only one where the losses are reckoned in dollars and the losses are reckoned in lives. And war doesn't just mean physical combat. War is more psychological nowadays than physical. And so I would say that the people that are always campaigning on this person is oppressing you, this person is doing that, those are your real oppressors. Those are the ones that are really oppressing
It's a
you.
magic trick.
Right.
Look here, tricks happening down
Right.
here.
Please ignore the man behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. Because, and I don't mind saying this, I look at an Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I look at a Jasmine Crockett, I look at the Democratic, what I call the Democratic plantation, as the provocateurs of oppression, because they want people to stay in the mind frame that oppression is still occurring and we're your savior. Anybody's crazy enough to say, I can fix this problem for you, investigate what their relationship is to the problem itself and see if they're not still perpetuating it.
You know, I think the beauty of the way you do things is you are willing to sit across from somebody who's, I think it was a Jubilee video. You're sitting across from the one guy and you're willing to listen to him. And I think listening is a lost art.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, these high-level politicians, both sides, it is a lot of theater. Because
yeah.
I've been in Washington, D.C., and I've seen these two arguing on the Senate floor, and then I see them going to have lunch together.
Yeah, they all go to Joe's afterwards, I promise you.
so they're not enemies. They're actually friends, because in reality, they're all on the same team.
Yeah.
They want you to believe this way, and they're going to say what you want, and this one's going to say what you want, and the next thing you know, we have a house divided, cannot stand, and all that type of stuff. So it's a giant magic trick. Now, as you move on in your oratory or in your oratory profession, you become better and better and better. Can you pick out something that may have sharpened your craft a little bit in your younger? I don't even know how old you are right now.
30.
You're 30. Okay. Mm-hmm. So say, as you're starting to become a young adult, 17, 16, 17, 18, was there something that sort of, okay, this is the direction I'm going in?
I could genuinely tell you what I've been on the same journey since I was about 9 years old. What does that mean? I was watching George Bush give a speech when I was at school on TV. For whatever reason, they had him playing on our TVs used to hang up on the upper right corner in our classrooms. And I was watching him give a speech, and I said, that's what I want to do. So the journey that I've been walking on is I've believed in my head ever since I was 9 I wanted to be president. Don't ask me where that came from. I have no idea. God had to put it in my bones.
You got 5 more years, and then you can run.
Well, running is that's the fun part, but I want to try to win at some point. But one of the things that what sharpened me, honestly, didn't come until, who gets the credit? Cenk Uygur. When he and I sat across from each other on our Jubilee debate, that was one populist surrounded by 20 Republicans and Democrats. So, Cenk, I'm going to give you a shout out to this. He genuinely introduced me to what populism was. Now, granted, he still leans to the left, and I lean more to the right. But what sharpened me was I wanted to find the synthesis between what Dr. King was trying to accomplish, Malcolm X, Cenk Uygur, myself, Donald Trump. I started looking at all of these politicians. I started looking at all of these historical figures and looking at what they wanted to say, what they wanted to do, and what they actually did. You said something very key. The Republicans and the Democrats work for the same team. That never needs to be forgotten. When you have one of the last presidents of this country that actually gave a damn about the American people, as flawed as this individual I'm about to name is, was Andrew Jackson. Why do I say that? He fought against the establishment of a central bank in the United States. They tried to kill him for this 3 times. You know who else tried to fight against it? John Fitzgerald Kennedy. John F. Kennedy passed Executive Order 11110, and that began the process of abolishing the Federal Reserve slowly, because it was an order to the U.S. Department of Treasury to begin issuing silver bullion certificates again. He wanted to get us off of the fiat currency bubble that we're in. So what sharpened me was listening to Cenk say that money and media control all the politics, that Republicans and Democrats are essentially on the same side. Starting to really listen to that from someone that is articulating it with a large platform forced me to go back, look at my own, at that time, genuine full-blooded allegiance to the Trump administration, because I'm seeing Trump as a populist candidate. He's anti-establishment. He's talking about draining the swamp. But when you get into such a bureaucratic system, there are certain trade-offs I've watched happen in the Trump administration. This is why my content has become probably more fiery towards the president, because I voted for him 3 times, but also now have to hold you accountable. The presidency is the biggest microphone on the face of the earth. That's its greatest power. It's not in his ability to pass executive orders. It's not in his ability to do anything except force the nation to pay attention for however many minutes he has the camera on him. And so that's what made me get sharpened. And what I want to do with that is simply use the presidency as what it's supposed to be. It's a pulpit for the American people. And I would make it I would have the most transparent White House in American history. I would invite American citizens to come sit down across from me. Let's have a conversation. I would reestablish fireside chats. Why? Because you have access as the president to whatever you need, file-wise. You have access to every media outlet on earth. And if you take that and you do well with it, the establishment can't stop you. The corporations can't stop you. Nobody can stop you but the American people who you actually answer to. But in order for me to get there, my rhetoric has to be sharpened. And so after that conversation with Chink, the first thing I did, I went home and I started reading the Bible again. I started reading Proverbs. I started reading Psalms. And I came across Psalm 118. It is better to put trust in the Lord than to ever put confidence in man. Because right now, right? And see, you laugh at that because that hits somewhere, doesn't it?
Oh, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
Because most people you can't trust. I just talked about it on Instagram Live. Because most people are transactional.
See? Yes. That's
Right?
the problem.
It's like, I want something from you.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And that's why I talked about that in that social media question. I don't want nothing from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, listen, if I'm in need and you have some way to help me out, I hope that you come help me. I really do.
Right.
But that's not why I'm going to be friends with you.
Right.
I might find you interesting. I might find you, I might find something that I just like what you have to say.
Yes, sir.
But I don't feed that. I don't need that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know who Ryan Tillman is?
That name sounds very familiar.
So you'll see him on Instagram. I think it's Breaking Barriers United. He's a California cop.
Mm-hmm.
And he just recently ran for governor.
Really? Okay.
There was a bunch of people running for governor. And I like Ryan. I met Ryan. I've talked to Ryan. And he's a good guy. He's a good guy. But here's what I love about him as a politician. I rarely ever throw my backing behind politics because I think it's very divisive. Here's what I liked about Ryan. I couldn't tell whether he was Republican or Democrat. I could not tell.
That's a good thing.
All right. I think he ran on the Democrat ticket. I think he did. But when he spoke, you couldn't tell which side of the aisle he sat on. He spoke with whatever was going to be best for the state of California.
Yes.
And I fully believe that he's got a future in politics for that reason. But here's the downside to that. Because he doesn't sit on one side is probably the reason he'll never win.
That's the harsh reality. I understand the older that I've gotten, Kevin, the more my good friend, I always have to shout him out because he taught me what I actually am. So shout out to you, Tony Maceo. We were having a conversation one day about my political beliefs. And he said, Austin, whether you realize it or not, you're not a Republican. You're not a Democrat. You're a centrist. You're just to the right of center. What does that mean? You are willing to call out the very political establishment that would open its arms for you in the Republican, because I used to just say, I'm Republican. But realistically, there are pieces of the Republican Party that vehemently are against what I stand for and what I believe in. So what does that mean? Most black Republicans, especially today, have forgotten that they are black. What does that mean? You just wash over the history of slavery. Say, it happened 240 years ago, blah, blah, let it go. You can't do that economically. If somebody has had an economic advantage for 244 years, for example, there are lasting net negative impacts that could be addressed. And apparently I'm a bad guy for saying, well, if the Japanese Americans got a reparations package, an $80,000 check, if the slave owners got reparations from the U.S. federal government at the time that the slaves were taken from them, why can't we I'm not asking for the $250,000 we'd be owed. I'm saying that if we're really conservatives, that means we're really merit-based. What better way to test how genuinely meritorious one can be except we try to give them an equal starting line?
That's how I teach my kids. Mm-hmm. I said, we all want to start at the same place.
Yes.
Now, I am opposed to giving somebody a check.
Yes.
Especially with slavery, because there are no slaves. There is nobody alive that even knows somebody who was a slave.
Yep.
So I do believe in investing in their future.
And same here.
All right. So one of the ways that can be done, and people aren't going to like this because it doesn't put money in their pocket, but it will eventually. You got to play the long game.
Mm-hmm. You
right?
do.
If too many people are very short-sighted. The long game is, let's invest in the community. Let's invest in jobs programs. Let's invest in training programs. Let's invest in education. All these things.
That's the key. That's the key, Kevin.
All these things are going to propel in the direction that they want to go.
You know my reparations plan? It's very simple. Free education for the next 30 years. Because not everybody's going to take it. Not everybody's going to take it. I'm going to be honest and say it. A lot of black people enjoy being lazy in the United States of America. A lot of people, period. But particularly people that look like me have adapted to laziness too much. Now, again, like we said earlier, there are pockets of pure, uncut excellence in the black community. But when you tell people, I'll give you free education, and I'm talking about full room board, full tuition, blah, blah, have a sunset program for 20 years. Those of us that want to get those merit increases, if you will, they'll go to Yale. They'll go to Harvard. They'll go wherever. They'll go wherever. It's fully funded. It's fully paid for by the U.S. government. And if you localize it to say this isn't about necessarily correcting slavery, because that's too far gone. It's too unpredictable. But just look at the history and the net negative economic impact that Jim Crow had in America. Much more confined program, much more researchable, much more data can be pulled from looking at redlining and all of that. Now, everyone that wants it can go get it. If you don't want it, don't complain to me about anything.
Well, so here's the problem with something like the free education. I'm going to tell you how the schools are going to get around that.
Yep.
I think it's a good plan, but here's how the schools are going to get around it. So I got a good friend. He's a professor at Seton Hall University. His name's Dr. Keyshawn Hickman. He's been a champion of mine. He's been a mentor to me. Adjunct professors per class of a high-level university. What do you think they're getting paid per class?
Oh, I'm not sure. That's a great question. I don't know.
They're getting paid about anywhere from $2,500 to $5,000 a class. This is a college or this is a university that's $70, $80, $90, $100,000 a year from all these students.
And that's all they're paying their adjunct professors.
They're paying their adjunct professors. Now, their adjunct professors, they don't get health benefits. They're scraping by. They basically got to teach 3 or 4 classes in order to make a decent profession. These are doctors. These are professionals. These are people who really know what they're doing. And if you don't listen, if you don't toe the university line,
they cut you out.
They cut you out. They're not going to offer you that position. So if you want to be like full-fledged professors, they're not around anymore. It's all adjunct professors. You'll see that title on so many different people. So they're paying their adjunct professors crap. And the university's pocketing all the money. So here's what's going to happen. The universities are always going to make their money.
Yeah.
Whether the government subsidizes them or not. They're not going to pass that down. And you're going to get crappy adjunct professors because nobody wants to do that job. That's what I see happening because that's the workaround.
See, that's that's the kind of conversation that I'd love to have because I don't want to just give people a shitty education. I would want to make it quality. So then that would force us to start looking at why are these universities charging these exorbitant rates of money? It goes back to we're not in war with, it's not about black and white. This is classism. At the end of the day, that's what this is. People that have more knowledge tend to make more money. So if you can control the means through which knowledge is acquired, guess what? Now you've rigged the game of Monopoly in your favor even more. That's cronyism.
Unless you got an OnlyFans account.
Unless you got an OnlyFans account, and that which look. But see, we're men. I don't know that we're not as likely to blow up on that as.
Listen, I'll show whatever I got to show in order. $20 is $20, my brother.
I'm trying to tell you, but that is something that is that's a serious conversation that we have to have, and all of that goes into the plan that I would have. You have to look at what is the best way to mitigate the psychological and economic impact, because a lot of black people too, don't feel as if they're fully men still. Dr. King said this in the 60s. He said that in order for the Negro to fully be free, he has to move into the inner resources of his own soul. No document can do this for him. No education can do this for him. You have to sign with pen and ink of self-asserted manhood, your own psychological emancipation proclamation. A lot of people, and this particularly affects our men more than our women, because one thing about black women that I see, black women have only had equivalent rights in this country since 1975. Been able to have bank accounts, stuff like that. Within 60 or so years, give or take, they have almost fully mitigated the education gap between them and black men, the wealth gap between them and black men. They only separate by like $5,000, $5,000 to $6,000. So going back to what you were talking about, the suffering piece, they learned something. They learned a self-sufficiency through suffering. I wish that more of our men understood this, but we have a twofold problem in the black community now. The loss of fathers in our households had a net negative impact on black male psychology that has not been deeply enough studied. It has not been deeply enough researched. The difference between the white man and the black man in 2026 comes down to one question. Whose dad is in the house and is in the house more?
I said this. I got a friend of mine that lives in the worst place in Patterson, like the worst street possible. She's a police officer. Okay. And I say this. I would ask her this question all the time. Now, on her street, there's active drug dealers going on, gang members, all the worst of the worst. So I asked her, I said, why did you stay on the straight and narrow and they didn't? Because my parents would have beat my ass. That's why.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying, listen, as a 30-year-old man, there is one man on this planet that not named Jesus I am deathly afraid of. His name's Julio. So I'm not, I understand that 100%.
So what we're doing right here, okay, this is how you discuss a topic. You brought up something, and there's some things I don't agree with in there. I'm not going to get angry at you. You're speaking your mind. You're speaking what you believe, and I appreciate that because you're coming out with some hard facts, and I like that. Okay, I want you to hit me with facts. You're not coming at me with emotion. You're coming at me with facts, even though you believe it in your soul and you believe it in your heart. I do believe that. I can tell by the way you speak.
Right.
And I'm going to say, okay, well, these are my facts, and all we're doing is we're taking something in the middle here and we're refining it and we're making it better. That's what debate does.
That's iron sharpening iron, isn't it?
Iron sharpening iron.
But what's so interesting is why is it so easy for you and I, who I'm sure there are things we disagree on, we say that. Why is it so easy for you and I to have these conversations and look for this? Because like you just said, what we're doing, we're trying to find the synthesis of both of our ideals.
We're putting our heads together. We're brainstorming.
Yes.
We're coming up and like, okay, well, you have some peaches and I have some apples and I have you have some meat and I have some vegetables. And we're trying to put together this big buffet here that's going to feed everybody.
Exactly.
And that's what debate does. Okay, debate is not about emotion. Debate is not about anger. Charlie Kirk got this great.
He did. I give it to him. Yes, he did.
He was able to sit in front of somebody that was calling him every name in the book, and he was able to disarm them through knowledge and through discussion. Okay, like him or not, I actually appreciated it. And one of the things that Charlie Kirk said that I hold true to, the day we stop talking is when violence happens.
Oh, case in point, the day that he lost his life.
Yep.
The day that he lost his life. This is... And I was actually I was going to debate Charlie in Arizona that year. I
was supposed to go back and do some with Jubilee with him.
Yeah. It was going to be a lot of you guys with him. It was going to be the All-Stars.
Yeah, it was going to be cool.
That was going to be. I think that would have broke the internet. I'm not going to lie to you. I think to this day I believe that would.
Let me tell you what. I don't think I would. I don't think I belonged in that room.
You know what? I think the fact you think you don't belong is exactly why you would have been one of the best people to be in that space, because. And there were things with Charlie I flat out disagreed with, but the ability to have that conversation would have meant more to me than anything.
Well, we all disagree. Okay, so are you married?
No, I want to get married, but I'm not married yet.
So do you have a girl?
Yes.
So you have a girl. Is your girl perfect? Do you agree with everything your girl does?
Absolutely not.
If you did, I would call you a freaking liar. Okay? No, she's not perfect.
Right.
But she's the right one for you.
Yes.
Okay? Just like political parties. Do you believe with everything your political party says?
Absolutely not.
No, but that's the right one for you because most of what they do aligns with the way you think.
Absolutely.
All right? And, so I can't even say this because I never tell anybody what my political party is or how I think. I think, but there's things my political party they champion, and I don't agree with them.
Yeah.
I don't agree with them, but most of the stuff I do. So that's how I live my life because I realize that there is no such thing as perfection. And debate brings that out. There is no such thing. You're going to have your views. I'm going to have my views. There's going to be some things we agree on, and we can talk about them all day. And there's going to be things we disagree on. Okay, why do you disagree on that? And that's what I want to know. That's my curiosity. I have a friend who is extraordinarily liberal on many different topics, and we're talking about this recent Iran thing. And I was like, I was genuinely interested. What do you think? What do you think? I don't want to speak to myself. I don't want to talk to somebody who agrees with me every single time. Right. And I think that's the beauty of what you do.
I appreciate that. What got me started in the debate circuit, really, when you think about it, was I don't know if you ever heard of the app Clubhouse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. 2020, I was on Clubhouse heavy. I did a room. That was where I met Amber Rose. That's the first time I met Amber Rose. We became good friends through there. There's something very fun about arguing your point of view with hundreds of people that don't agree with anything you're saying, and you have 500 people listening to you at once. But it does. You know what it forces me to do? Read.
Yeah.
Force me to read a lot
Because
more
somebody's
books.
going to say something you're not knowledgeable on.
Like you just there's three things you were told about: Robert E. Lee, Ulysses S. Grant, the other books that you mentioned, and the Lone Ranger story. I didn't know any of that till I sat at this table. And now guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to go read everything you just told me. And now the next time we sit down, we're going to probably agree some more and disagree a whole lot more, and that's going to be the most fun conversations that we have.
But that's the beautiful thing.
Exactly.
That's the beauty, and that's what debate's all about. And that's why I want to come in here. But now you say some fiery things.
Yeah.
Okay. Has there ever been a time where somebody has clapped back at you, maybe threatened you?
Oh, every fucking day.
So
I should show you my DMs. I get called a coon. I get called a piece of shit. I'm gonna die. And blah, blah. Listen, the amount of shit I have been told. Apparently, I should be dead already. But
yeah, that was the Jubilee. The worst one was I did this thing called the Enemies Project where I debated.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yes, you were debating the black lady. She had chocolate skin lady. Yeah, I saw that one.
So. And I actually like Afeni. I think she's a good person. I don't agree with what she says.
That was a fiery debate, too. How was that?
We got egged on a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we got egged on a little bit. But that one and the Jubilee, I was getting death threats. I'm telling you, I was getting death threats. I'm like, this is insanity.
Yeah.
Did you even listen to it? So the problem is people get fired up. And the media has a lot to do with this, right?
You know they do. They got to find the juicy clips. You know it.
People get fired up and they judge you from a 45-second clip. They don't look at the content of your character. They look at whatever you're saying in that particular moment.
They look at the content of that 20 seconds. That's what. Yeah.
And they think they know you, and they don't like you.
Yep.
So all this hate comes out of them. So in my opinion, when somebody hates you like that, when somebody makes those fiery comments, it's because you struck a chord, and they don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
They're looking at something in themselves like, well, maybe what I'm believing is a lie, and they don't want to believe it. So what was the worst thing somebody ever said to you? One that really got to you.
Okay, now the one that really got to me, that's a hard one because I've developed this thick enough skin to the point where I kind of let it all go. But there was one statement somebody said to me. They said, your father raised the coon. They said, your daddy raised the coon. And I said, first of all, my daddy raised a critical thinker. If you talk to my dad, Kevin, he will not identify, he refuses to identify as a Republican or a Democrat. You know what he says he is? He says, I'm an American that thinks.
Yeah, love that.
He says, I'm an American that thinks. There is, and my dad has a bachelor's degree in technical management. So forget ever trying to argue with this man because he doesn't even debate. He just asks questions to expose if there's a fallacy in your line of reasoning. That's how he gets you to expose it. He doesn't say you're wrong. He'll walk you through the process psychologically of exposing where your reasoning is valid or where it's flawed.
He's so smart. I do that with my kids. I learned this really early on. So when your kid comes to you, you got a 5-year-old right now. So when a couple of years, your kid's going to come in, Dad, I want a PlayStation. Here's the method of doing it. I'm going to give this away. Oh. Here's the method of doing it. Just repeat the last couple of words that he said a couple times. You want a PlayStation? Well, yeah, I want to play games. I want to do this. You want to play games. And just keep going down the line. And eventually what's going to happen is you will get to the root of what they want. And you will make them see that is not, if that's something that you're against, that is not real. I want to go out and stay out till 10 o'clock at night with my friends. You want to stay out till 10 o'clock at night with your friends. And keep doing it. And you'll get to the root of what they want. And if it's something, the root of what they want, is it something that you align with? Maybe they want to go out with their friends to do something wrong or,
Yeah.
Then you can actually make your decision. But until then, like when you're debating people, they're coming at you with something, but what are they really trying to say?
What is the ontology of what you're asking me? So ontology defines just what is the root and the foundation of your worldview? Why
you said that earlier, and that's why I brought that up.
Yeah. What is the core of your worldview what is the presupposition upon which you're asking me anything that's coming out of your mouth? And that's where I get into these conversations with atheists a lot. And atheists are really the ultimate subjective people on the face of the earth because what I feel is correct. What I think is correct when it gets to a certain point. They love borrowing. I said this a while ago. A lot of the greatest problem with atheism is that it loves to borrow the moral fruit of the Christian tree without accepting its root.
That's a great point, and you're 100% true. Because Joe Rogan, I'm actually watching Joe Rogan take his walk. Like
you're watching that too.
I watched it with Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
I watched him take that walk.
That's who I'm watching take his walk too, Jordan. I'm
watching them just get pulled, and all these people are getting pulled. Even if you aren't a Christian, Joe Rogan said this, even if you aren't a Christian, you should want to live like a Christian. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's goods, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, all that stuff, which we know to be true and moral. But here's the one thing, and I cannot remember, I think it was Jordan Peterson who said it. So you believe, and a lot of people say the reason for atheism, if God exists, then why is all this suffering happening?
Yeah, all the evil in the world. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So Jordan Peterson said, so if God doesn't exist, would there still be suffering?
That's a great question.
Right?
That is an excellent question, actually.
Would suffering still exist? You know, because you're thinking that somebody is doing this to you and not for you, right? So maybe you're watching somebody go through pain and suffering. What is being done for you? It's not being done to you. What is being done for you? Maybe it's a lesson. Maybe it was this person. Maybe it was to teach you patience. Maybe it was to teach you grace. Maybe it was to teach you all these different things. You know, people got to start looking at that stuff.
And that's where you look at Christ as the most ultimate masculine man, because he's the king of the universe and he lays down his power. So he demonstrates that Christ is such a unique individual, obviously, right?
25,000 sources prove that he's existed.
25,000. And yet people still argue, and his tomb's still empty, of course.
Only 500 sources prove Genghis Khan. Only 250 prove that Alexander the Great lived. Yet we believe these people to be fact.
And it was only, I think we only have like about 30. Is it 25 or 37 manuscripts for like Homer's Iliad and Homer's Odyssey, things like that. And we have less evidence that Aristotle and Plato were real than we do for Jesus. But you know what it comes down to is the empty tomb. Genuinely, that's really what it boils down to. And I think the Christ displays the glory of having all power with love connecting the two. Because Christ he's the union of power and love. Love without power is sentimental and anemic, and power without love is reckless and abusive. It's always like that.
Man, that's that bullet that you're spitting.
Well, but see, again, that one doesn't. I remember reading that. I heard that somewhere. I don't remember where I heard that. 9 times out of 10 is probably from something Dr. King said. But I think that that's very true. One of the problems that the philosopher Nietzsche had was that he couldn't reconcile the philosophy of what he called the will to power. In other words, society is going to be fallen, and the only thing that matters is power. The philosophers opposed to Nietzsche said that there has to be a synthesis of love and power. And so the true implementation of the demands of justice is power applied to implement the demands of love while correcting everything that stands against it. When Jesus said that if you love me, you will love your neighbor as you love yourself, what does that look like in practice? It looks like everything we've been sitting here talking about. We may not agree 100% on everything, but even in this conversation, there's a iron sharpening iron. There's a love that exists presently in the agape sense, even in this very conversation, where I can feel that both of our end goals are the same. We want everybody to be judged based on their merit. We want everybody to go home safe. We want everybody to have the life that they want, while not stepping on my toes in the process.
As long as your personal freedoms do not impede on my personal freedoms, I want you to do whatever you want to do.
Exactly.
So I'm gonna. Have you ever seen the picture of conception?
Mm-mm.
There's a video of it. There's actually a video where somebody they did I don't know how they did it, but they captured when the sperm.
Oh, and the flash of light that happens.
The flash of light.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not a believer and you watch that video, and you're not a believer, and in order to be a believer, you have to believe that Jesus Christ rose after 3 days.
Right.
And the Shroud of Turin and that light that emitted and radiated his image onto that fabric. You have to believe that we all know conception is real.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay? We take that as fact. Mm-hmm. We're here, obviously. And they actually put a camera on the moment of conception, and what do you see? A giant flash of light.
Yep.
The moment when Jesus comes back to life. A giant flash of light.
Which is the only explanation for that image on that shroud. And the shroud is one of the things that saved my life, by the way, because that's one of the things that turned me from an atheist to a Christian.
I love reading stuff about the Shroud of Turin.
Yes.
You know, Constantine's mother goes to Jerusalem, finds the shroud, brings it back, all this stuff, and its journey and all that stuff. And then they did the tests on it in 77?
77, yeah. And they tried to say that it was in the 1400s. And then they was like, no, it was damaged in a fire. And it was later revealed to be an authentic first century artifact.
Do you know that they never once published those findings?
I did know that.
You heard things about it, but they've never published those findings. They did a more recent one where they said the pollens match. It's first century. It's a Jewish man. There's Tiberius coins over his eyes, and all these different things. Well, and I bring these to the table when somebody comes to me and said, there's no way that it's real. But who is it? I think it was going back to Joe Rogan. He goes, more people believe that we were created from 2 specks of dust than believe the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Something magical. They don't know. People still don't know how all of this beautifulness started, but you won't believe that.
Well, because the reality of it is, in order for people to believe in Christ as God incarnated in flesh, which is what he claimed to be, that forces them to realize they are never in control of anything. That is the most scary thought to have to grapple with.
Well, you make a good point, because a lot of times people misquote the Bible. Just a quick one, and people will misquote when they're debating as well. So we'll bring this back to debate. So people will misquote the Bible by saying God's only going to give you what you can handle. That's bullshit.
Right.
God's going to give you stuff you can't handle all the time because he wants to give it. Listen, I can't handle this, but I know a guy who does, and he's going to make you give it up to him.
Because you actually think David could handle the psychological torment of having to send one of his boys to war just so he could sleep with his wife, like the aftermath psychologically that David experienced?
Uriah.
You think any human being could deal with that? No.
But it gets back to the source of debate. Okay, the source of where I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you everything I have, and I'm going to come at you with fact. I'm going to come at you with everything that I have, and you're going to come at me with everything you have. Where hey, I didn't know that. There's a lot of things that came out of your mouth tonight. I'm like, holy shit, I didn't know that, or I may have heard it vaguely, but not put the way you put it. And I'm like, wow. So that's a wonderful thing. But if you had you want to take this into politics, is that where you want to go with this?
I would love to believe that that's the case, but one of the things that I've understood, and like you brought this up earlier, you can't be a genuine independent.
You're going to lose.
You're going to lose. Jesse Ventura is the only one I know that won the governorship of Minnesota as an independent. He's the only one.
If you ever been to Minnesota, you'd understand why he won. Because in Minnesota, if you go outside of Minneapolis, St. Paul, all the people care about is, do I have enough money to pay my mortgage? Do I have enough money to pay for my truck? And do I not have enough money to pay for my family? Mm-hmm. They don't care. Like, they're not, this is the East Coast. We're different, okay? Yeah. We're go, 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 go.
Oh, yeah.
They're much more laid back. So you understand if you've ever been out to Minnesota, especially like western part.
And I've been out there, but I've only been to Minneapolis and St. Paul. So I'm with you there. What I've come to realize is that as bad as I would love to be the president of the United States, it would take which it always takes an act of God, but it would take a divine act of God to accomplish that task. What I will settle for is being that public intellectual that is able to speak his mind, able to debate because I would sit across from anybody. That I think is the lane that I would take it into. So you would, within the next 10 to 15 years, I would imagine, if I'm not in office, even though I do want to run for Congress in 2030, if I'm not in office, I would see myself hosting a large podcast that commands an audience of at least 2 to 3 million listeners, where I may not be a politician, I may not be a king, but I can be a kingmaker. If people listen to me, they can at least go know who to vote for, know who to research, know the questions to ask. If I can get you to ask the right questions, sometimes that's more important than holding the office, in my humble opinion, at least.
Yeah, but you're fearless. So that's what it takes to do what you do. You got to be fearless.
Well, the crazy thing is, I don't have, the reason I'm fearless is because, again, like we said earlier, I know what my ultimate end is. I know I'm not going to be here but for so long. So what the hell do I have to be scared? What the hell do I have to be scared of? And I hate to say this, but I gain strength from this, because when I look at what happened to Charlie Kirk, for example, ask me if Charlie Kirk was afraid.
No. Because people had asked him the question before he died.
Yes.
It's like, what if you died tomorrow? And it was just as long as my Lord accepts me.
And I view the world the same way. In spite of all my disagreements with Charlie, there was a lot of things Charlie said I agree with 100%. That one right there, as long as Christ accepts me, what the hell do I have to be afraid of? I've watched my grandfather go upstairs. I watched my grandmother. I watched my uncle go upstairs. I know my day's coming. What do I have to fear? Now, that could very well be the fact that I know I really believe God loves me, and the Bible says perfect love casts out fear. So I think, if anything, that's what I'm operating under, Kevin. And that's why I wouldn't be afraid when I turn 35 to declare as an independent candidate if I felt pulled strong enough. But if I could, I would run as an independent or as a Republican. If being forced into the two-party system, I know I'd have to run as a Republican, because I refuse to run as a Democrat, only because the established party platform is completely antithetical to the way that I see
one side you have to be a little bit more radical.
Right.
Yeah.
See, the Republican Party now is more of a coalition of beliefs. The Democratic establishment is more of a legitimate party line. Because there's no way you're going to tell me that Donald Trump was supposed to win in 2016. That wasn't supposed to happen.
No.
But what he did was build a coalition of people that were just fed up with the bullshit, to be quite honest. And I think the same thing could happen for me. It would probably take. I told Cenk Uygur I was going to run for president in 15 years when we were on Jubilee. That only happens if I have to become a whole lot more wealthy. Because I wouldn't want to be owned by the corporations. I wouldn't want to have people being able to tell me what they need to say, what they need to have me do. That,
Well, if you keep doing what you're doing, I think the rest is going to take care of itself because you're always put in a position you're supposed to be in, right? Yeah. You're always where you need to be at the right time. And I think the path that you're walking, you're walking with strong faith. You're walking with knowledge. You're walking with education. You're educating people. You're speaking your mind. Even sometimes you might speak your mind and you change your mind afterwards. You own your mistakes. All these different things. These are things that make a great president. They make a great congressman. They make a great governor. And they're so rare. They're so rare. I always said in the police world, the people who should have been the police chiefs will never be the police chiefs for that reason. And it's the same thing with politicians. The people who would make the best politicians will never be politicians because they don't want any part of that bullshit.
Well, what's funny? Most people tell me, Kevin, that I was supposed to be a preacher. One of the primary reasons I will never walk into the pulpit is because I tell people all the time, my life is not lived in the shadow of the cross. And I refuse to stand in God's pulpit and tell people you should do X, Y, and Z, knowing that there's still a couple of skeletons in Austin's closet that have not been cleaned out yet. And I'm just saying that I'm no better than anybody. But that profession specifically, I refuse. I would never walk into God's pulpit. And what one of my friends told me was, he said, "You ever thought about this? You ever thought about maybe God is using your platform as your pulpit?"
That's a good point.
I didn't think about it like that.
But there's more to the pulpit than that. The pulpit is about admitting your transgressions, admitting you're wrong, being a sinner in front. You are a sinner. We're all sinners.
Absolutely.
Right? You are a sinner. I'm a sinner. And in order for me to get up there and tell people don't sin, I have to first admit that, yes, I do it too. I know what you're doing. I'm doing it too.
Yeah.
And I don't want to do it no more. So if we band together. So listen, Austin, we're coming to the end of this thing because I could speak to you all night.
I didn't realize we've been sitting here for an hour. Almost.
We've been sitting here for an hour. And I could speak to you all night. And I'm going to come down to Atlanta. And next time I'm going to come see you.
Absolutely.
Yes. And then we're going to sit down. We'll have another discussion about whatever you want to talk about. So why don't you give us out your social media? Where can our audience find you?
So you guys can find me on TikTok at Real Austin Off Script, on Instagram at Austin Off Script, and YouTube at Austin Off Script. That's pretty. You either punch that in or punch my nickname in, Dr. Julio. I got that nickname in high school, and you'll find me on all social platforms.
You put yourself out there all the time.
Yeah.
You put your views out there. You put your beliefs out there, but your beliefs are rooted in faith. They're in truth. They're in education. They're in all these different things. And I know you deal with some personal suffering when you do this stuff because you're opening yourself up to criticism. Nobody likes criticism.
Right.
So there's a lot of suffering involved. So if you had to pick out something that you suffer with through this debate gift that you've been given, what do you think that is?
Feeling like I haven't done enough is the biggest thing that I struggle with. So there's a level of anxiety and depression that comes with that. And I remember Andrew Young talked about this with Dr. King a lot. He said that Martin Luther King never felt like he was doing enough for the civil rights movement. So for me, I feel like the quotation, with great power comes great responsibility, I'm well aware that God gave me a gift. And my daddy used to always say that the greatest sin one can commit is to not use all the gifts you've been given to their maximum ability. That is the conscious fear that I operate with every single day, because I want to make not only God proud, but I want to make my dad proud because my dad's my hero. And he and my mother have been married for 35 years, but he's the one person on the planet I've never seen shake under any circumstance. He's always been very stoic. I've never seen his temperature raise. I've never seen it. But when you watch that for 30 years, it creates this sort of, I call it a self-created paradox, because I want my dad, I'm always in pursuit of his approval, knowing that I already have it. So that's something that it still gives you that level of anxiety, but it also gives you a marker to always push for as well. That's kind of how I juxtapose both of those things.
Well, I cannot wait to see. And if you do run for whatever, that'll be the first time I step up for a candidate. No, that's not true. I stepped up for Ryan Tillman. I stepped up for him. I publicly endorsed him, put some stuff out there, and I don't normally do that, but I'm on your team, dude. Whatever you need, my platform is your platform, and I think you're going to make it.
I appreciate that.
I do.
Listen, God willing, I'll tell you this: if I ever get to that level, you would be one of the first people that I would call to help, because you don't when you get to that one thing, there's a danger in Washington. You forget who you are and you forget who you serve. Yeah. And I see the chain that you have on. I see the cross. That I would have to keep people that serve the carpenter around me without question. You would be one of the first phone calls that I would make, and I can tell you that now.
He's the only person in the world to fear.
Come on.
And he never wants you to fear him. That's the juxtaposition of that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Austin, thank you so much for coming in. I really do appreciate this. You're welcome here anytime.
Thank you. Same to you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of The Suffering Podcast, the Suffering of Debate with Austin Broughton. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Life is a series of moments. Oration has a bit of theater in it. We shouldn't agree on everything. Be fearless. We all feel like we haven't done enough sometimes, but most importantly, debate isn't hate. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast. We'll see you on the next episode.